I was 23 when I first realized I was living someone else's life, and the strange part is I didn't figure it out in some dramatic moment of clarity. No, it happened in a grocery store parking lot at sunset, sitting in my car with the engine off, staring at a receipt for things I didn't remember wanting. That's when it hit me. I had no idea who I actually was beneath all the decisions I'd been making on autopilot. And that terrifying question, that sudden vertigo of self-awareness, is exactly what a Greek slave named Epictetus understood 2,000 years ago when he wrote words that would eventually crack open my entire understanding of freedom. What if I told you that the prison you're living in right now, the one you can't see, was built by your own hands, brick by brick, with every reaction you couldn't control and every external thing you mistook for happiness? Because here's the brutal truth Epictetus discovered while literally wearing chains. Most of us are slaves, and we don't even know it. Picture this: Rome, around 55 AD. A boy is born into slavery. His name is Epictetus, which literally means acquired one, as if his entire identity could be reduced to someone's property receipt. He's owned by Epictetus, a wealthy freedman who serves in Emperor Nero's court. And if you know anything about Nero, you know this isn't exactly a stable work environment. We're talking about an emperor who allegedly fiddled while Rome burned, who executed his own mother, who turned cruelty into performance art. And somewhere in this mad circus of power and paranoia, young Epictetus is getting an education, not the kind you'd expect for a slave, but in philosophy, in the ideas of the Stoics who came before him. But here's where the story gets dark. At some point, his master, either through punishment or casual brutality, cripples him. One version says Epictetus deliberately broke his leg. Another suggests it was twisted in some torture, and when Epictetus felt the bone snapping, he supposedly said with eerie calm, "You're going to break it." And after it broke, "Didn't I tell you?" Whether that story is true or embellished doesn't matter. What matters is the psychological earthquake it represents. This is a man who understood something fundamental about pain and control that most of us spend our entire lives avoiding. Now you might be thinking, what does an ancient crippled slave have to do with my life, with my anxiety about my career, my relationships, my endless scroll through social media at 2 in the morning wondering why everyone else seems to have it figured out? Everything. Because Epictetus discovered a secret that modern psychology is only now beginning to fully appreciate. The only thing you actually control is so small, so limited, that once you truly grasp it, your entire life reorganizes itself around a single devastating question. He divided all of existence into 2 categories: things within your control and things outside of it. And here's the kicker: almost everything you care about, almost everything you lose sleep over, is in the second category. Your reputation? Not yours to control. Your health? You can influence it, but ultimately not control it. Whether people love you, respect you, remember you, completely outside your power. The weather, the economy, other people's opinions, the past, the future, all of it beyond your grasp. So what's left? What's in that tiny circle of control that Epictetus says is the only thing worth focusing on? Your judgments, your perceptions, your responses, the meaning you assign to events. That's it. That's the kingdom you rule, and it's the only kingdom that matters. But let's be honest, that sounds almost insulting at first, doesn't it? You're telling me that after all my effort, all my planning, all my striving, the only thing I control is my attitude about things? It feels like a cosmic joke, like the universe is gaslighting you into acceptance. And yet, think about the last time you were truly miserable. I mean, really dig into that memory. Was it the event itself that destroyed you? Or was it your story about what that event meant? When someone rejected you, was it the rejection that hurt? Or your interpretation that you weren't good enough, that you'd never be loved, that this confirmed every dark suspicion you'd always had about yourself? Epictetus would grab you by the shoulders and say, "It's not things that disturb us, but our judgments about things." A breakup is just a relationship ending. You add the meaning. I'm unlovable. I wasted years. I'll die alone. A failure at work is just an outcome. You add the meaning. I'm incompetent. Everyone knows I'm a fraud. I'll never succeed. The event is neutral. Your mind is the weapon you're using to destroy yourself. Now here's where this gets uncomfortable, because if Epictetus is right, then you're responsible for your suffering in a way that's almost unbearable to accept. Not responsible in the sense that you caused the bad things to happen, but responsible in the sense that you're the one building the prison of meaning around them. And this is where modern culture has completely misunderstood Stoicism. It's not about suppressing emotions or becoming some robotic, unfeeling machine. It's about recognizing that you have a choice in how you frame reality, and that choice is the most powerful thing you'll ever possess. Epictetus himself wasn't some emotionless statue. He was passionate about philosophy. He cared deeply about his students. He wrote with fire about justice and virtue. But he refused to be enslaved by things beyond his control. He'd already experienced literal slavery. He knew what it felt like to have zero external freedom. And in that crucible, he discovered that internal freedom, the freedom of judgment and perception, could never be taken away unless he gave it away himself. So let me ask you something and really sit with this. What are you enslaved to right now? What external thing are you giving power over your inner state? Is it your follower count, your bank account, your ex's new relationship, your parents' approval, your body's appearance, the political situation, the state of the world? Epictetus would look at you building your identity around these shifting sands and ask, why are you constructing a self out of things that can be taken away? Because here's the brutal logic. If your happiness depends on external circumstances, you're not free, you're a puppet, and every event is yanking your strings, making you dance to rhythms you didn't choose. The job promotion makes you ecstatic until it doesn't. The relationship completes you until it ends. The achievement validates you until you need the next one. You're on a treadmill of dependency, and the machine is running you. But what if you could step off? What if you could find a happiness that doesn't require the world to cooperate with your preferences? This is what Epictetus called living according to nature, not nature in the sense of forests and rivers, but nature in the sense of understanding what you are, a reasoning being with the capacity for judgment, living in a universe that operates according to rational principles even when those principles don't serve your personal agenda. The Stoics believed in a kind of cosmic rationality, a logos that permeates everything, and your job as a human being is to align your will with that rationality rather than constantly fighting against what is. When it rains on your parade, you can rage against the sky, or you can recognize that rain doesn't care about your parade, and your happiness was never dependent on the weather in the first place. This isn't resignation. This is liberation. Now let's talk about Epictetus's most famous metaphor, the one that makes modern readers deeply uncomfortable: life as a play. He says that you're an actor, and you didn't choose your role. You might be playing a king or a beggar, a healthy person or a sick one, someone born into privilege or poverty, someone with natural talent or someone who has to fight for every inch. You didn't audition for this role, you didn't approve the script, and you don't get to decide when the curtain falls. The only thing you control is how well you play the part you've been given. And here's where people get it twisted. They think this means just accepting whatever garbage life throws at you, becoming passive, giving up on changing circumstances. But that's not what Epictetus means at all. If you're playing the role of someone who fights injustice, then fight with everything you have. If you're in a position to help others, then help them with full commitment. The point isn't to stop acting. It's to stop confusing yourself with the role, to stop thinking that your worth as a human being is determined by whether you're playing Hamlet or Rosencrantz. Think about the implications of this for a second. Every identity crisis you've ever had, every moment you've felt like an imposter, every time you've measured yourself against someone else's highlight reel, all of it stems from mistaking your role for yourself. You're not your job title. You're not your relationship status. You're not your achievements or failures. Those are just costumes, just scripts, just the particular scene you happen to be in right now. The real you, the part that Epictetus says is truly yours, is the capacity to choose your response, to examine your judgments, to decide what kind of character you're going to have regardless of the plot you've been handed. And this is where virtue enters the picture, because for the Stoics, virtue, living with wisdom, justice, courage, and self-discipline, is the only thing that's always under your control and always worth pursuing. You can be virtuous while poor or rich, sick or healthy, praised or condemned. External circumstances can't touch it. It's the one thing that's genuinely yours. But here's the question that probably keeps you up at night. If I stop caring about external things, if I stop measuring my worth by achievements and validation, who even am I? What's the point of trying if none of it matters? And this is where Epictetus reveals something that most people miss entirely. He's not saying external things don't matter in the sense that you shouldn't engage with the world. He's saying they don't matter in the sense that your inner peace shouldn't be held hostage by outcomes you can't control. You can work your hardest to build something beautiful, to create, to love, to contribute, and you should. That's your role in the play. But the moment you tie your serenity to whether it succeeds or fails, whether people applaud or criticize, you've handed away your freedom. This is what he meant by preferred indifference. Yes, health is better than sickness, wealth more comfortable than poverty, but neither one makes you a better or worse person at your core. They're stage props, some prettier than others, but props nonetheless. And here's where we need to talk about the hardest test Epictetus ever set for his students. The exercise that sounds absolutely insane until you understand what he's actually doing. He tells them to practice negative visualization, to regularly imagine losing everything you value, your loved ones, your possessions, your abilities, everything. Now, before you think this is just morbid pessimism, understand what's happening psychologically. You spend most of your life terrified of loss, anxious about future pain, trying to control the uncontrollable because you haven't accepted that loss is built into the structure of existence. Everything you love is temporary. Everyone you cherish will eventually be gone, by their death or yours. Every achievement will fade. Your body will fail. This isn't pessimism, this is just reality. And by practicing the contemplation of these losses in advance, you're doing something radical. You're removing their power to devastate you through surprise. You're also, and this is the beautiful part, learning to appreciate what you have right now with a depth that only comes from truly understanding its impermanence. When Epictetus tells you to kiss your child goodnight and remember that they're mortal, he's not trying to depress you. He's trying to wake you up to the preciousness of this moment, this one right here, which is all you ever actually have. So where does this leave you? Right now? In your modern life with your modern problems? Epictetus would tell you to start with one exercise, so simple it sounds stupid. Pay attention to your first impression of events, that immediate story your mind tells about what something means. Someone cuts you off in traffic, and instantly you're furious because they're a selfish asshole who doesn't value your time. But pause right there. That's not a fact. That's a judgment, a story. The fact is, a car changed lanes. Everything else is your addition. You're not required to add it. You could just as easily construct a different story. Maybe they're rushing to the hospital. Maybe they didn't see you. Maybe they're just having the worst day of their life. But here's the deeper point. You don't need to construct any story at all. You can simply observe what happened and choose your response based on virtue rather than reactive judgment. This practice, catching yourself in the act of creating meaning and asking whether that meaning serves you, is the daily work of Stoicism. It's not dramatic. It's not mystical. It's just the slow, patient training of your mind to stop being enslaved by its own automatic interpretations. And this is where Epictetus bridges into something that resonates powerfully with modern psychology, particularly cognitive behavioral therapy, which is basically Stoicism in clinical form. CBT teaches exactly what Epictetus taught. It's not events that create your emotional suffering. It's your thoughts about events, and you can learn to examine and change those thoughts. The difference is that Epictetus embedded this insight within a complete philosophy of life, a vision of what it means to be human and how to live well in a universe that doesn't revolve around your preferences. Modern therapy gives you techniques. Ancient Stoicism gives you techniques plus a comprehensive framework for meaning, purpose, and human flourishing. But both are pointing at the same liberating truth. You have more control over your inner experience than you think, and less control over external reality than you wish. Now let's circle back to that original image of Epictetus with his broken leg, crippled by his master, living in chains, and somehow finding a freedom that his master, despite all his power and privilege, could never access. This is the ultimate paradox that makes Stoicism so powerful and so threatening to the status quo. You can be externally constrained in every possible way and still be internally free. And conversely, you can have all the external freedom in the world, all the wealth and power and options, and be internally enslaved to your desires, your fears, your need for validation. Epictetus eventually gained his external freedom, was released from slavery, and went on to teach philosophy in Rome until Emperor Domitian banished all philosophers, at which point he moved to Greece and continued teaching. But here's the thing. His teaching didn't fundamentally change based on whether he was enslaved or free, because the freedom he was talking about was never about external circumstances in the first place. It was always about the sovereignty of the mind, the ability to choose your judgments, to live according to virtue regardless of what role fate has assigned you. So here's what I want you to sit with. What would your life look like if you truly internalized this? If you stopped waiting for circumstances to align before you could be at peace? If you recognize that the prison you're in has a door that's been unlocked this whole time, and the only thing keeping you inside is your belief that happiness lives somewhere outside, in some achievement or relationship or external validation you haven't acquired yet. Epictetus is telling you that you've been looking in the wrong direction your entire life. The freedom you're seeking isn't out there in the world of things you can't control. It's in here, in the space between what happens and how you respond to it. In your capacity to examine your judgments and choose differently, to build a self not on shifting sand, but on the bedrock of virtue and reason. And the wildest part? You can start right now. You don't need to quit your job, move to a monastery, or wait for the perfect conditions. You just need to pay attention to the next thought that crosses your mind and ask yourself, is this judgment helping me live according to my values? Or is it enslaving me to things beyond my control? This is the work. This is the practice. And it's not easy because you've spent years, maybe your entire life, constructing an identity around external things, building a self that requires constant validation from a world that doesn't owe you anything. Tearing that down and rebuilding on Stoic principles feels like dying and being reborn, because in a sense, it is. The person who believes they need others' approval to be worthy is going to have to die, so that the person who knows their worth comes from virtue alone can be born. The person who thinks they can't be happy until circumstances change is going to have to die, so that the person who finds peace in accepting and working with what is can emerge. This is transformation at the deepest level, and it's terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. But here's your choice, the only choice that matters. You can keep living as a slave to circumstances, to other people's opinions, to the random chaos of events beyond your control, or you can walk through the unlocked door of your mental prison and claim the only freedom that's real, the freedom of the mind to choose its responses, to live according to reason and virtue, to find peace not in getting what you want, but in wanting what virtue requires. Epictetus, the crippled slave who became one of history's greatest teachers of freedom, is extending his hand across 2,000 years, offering you the key. The question is, are you brave enough to use it? Because once you do, once you truly see that the power was inside you all along, everything changes. The world doesn't have to cooperate anymore. You're finally, genuinely free. And if you've made it this far with me through this journey into ancient wisdom that's more relevant today than ever, I need you to ask yourself one more question. What's one external thing you're going to stop letting control your inner state this week? Just one. Start there. Let me know in the comments what you're choosing, because seeing others commit to this work makes it real, makes it powerful. And if this perspective shift hit you the way it hit me when I first truly understood Epictetus, share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because freedom is contagious, and the world needs more people who understand that peace doesn't come from controlling circumstances, but from mastering the only thing we ever truly control, ourselves. I'll see you in the next one, where we're diving into another philosopher who understood something about human nature that will completely reframe how you see your relationships. Until then, remember, the door's unlocked. You just have to walk through.